It's Cinco de Mayo in Laramie, Wyoming. We have Brett Glass in Studio 255 with the City Council meeting agenda preview. And Brett, good morning.
Good morning, boys. Yes, this is Brett Glass, and this is your City Council update for the week of Cinco de Mayo. Um, the City Council is going to be meeting on Tuesday, and they're going to be having a second meeting, which is a work session on Wednesday, and I'm going to go through what they're going to cover. Their agenda is long. I printed it out, and it took me 11 pages to get through all of it. So there are a lot of things going on at City Council, but a lot of them are routine. And so some of them are really just the final votes on things that they've considered before. Some of them are kind of interesting, so I'll go through them with you. The city council meeting on Tuesday night will begin as usual with a public comment, or approved without any discussion is really, really long. The items on it go from letter A to letter S, and the public always has to be very concerned about what's on the consent agenda and watch that things aren't being slipped by, which should be discussed. But in this case, there really is a whole bunch of minutia, and most of it really is not controversial. The minutes from a lot of boards and commissions, cemetery deeds, vouchers, which basically means the city paying its bill, agreements to allow wayfinding signs on private property in some cases where the city wants to put up a sign saying this way to downtown or whatever. Most of the things on it, I'm not going to go through all of it because it is so long, but most of them are pretty routine, and the ordinances that are on the agenda, which basically are going to be approved, just the third reading of the ordinance, are things which have been discussed at length at previous meetings, and council's already made up its mind, so it doesn't think it needs to discuss any of those things. So that hopefully will be approved quickly in one big chunk, and at least I personally don't see anything on the consent agenda that is new, that is slipping anything by that ought to be discussed. That's a good thing. So at least they will get that out of the way. But then they have 12 more items on the regular agenda to consider, and so this is going to be a long meeting. Some of them are construction contracts and maintenance contracts, awarding of bids. For example, they're awarding a bid for a cured in-place pipe project. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, sewer pipes that are buried under the ground are very expensive to replace. So one of the things that the city does is instead of replacing them, they put an epoxy coating on the inside of the pipe. And what they do is they blow up sort of a balloon inside the pipe, which contains the epoxy coating that they want to put on it. And then when the balloon is fully expanded, they hit it with ultraviolet light, and that causes the epoxy to cure. It is much less expensive than replacing the entire sewer pipe, and so it's a good thing that they're doing that. They're going to be awarding a bid for large portions of the city's sewer system, mainly in the center of the city, mainly up and down avenues and streets and major thoroughfares such as 9th Street. And so that's a good thing, and that's something which is much needed. There's going to be a professional services agreement on the agenda. I don't think there'll be much discussions here, for an accountant to to audit the city's books, and that's certainly a good thing. We want to have that. We always want to keep our eye on what the city is doing financially. And then there is a resolution awarding $231,272 in community partner funds. And this is contingent on the adoption of the budget, the final year budget. But what it is essentially is donations to the big one. It's a big spreadsheet. And what you see on the spreadsheet, if you could delve into the city site, is the amount that each one asked for from the city, and then how much each council member thought they should get, and then the average of that, which is what actually gets awarded. And none of the nonprofits is getting everything it asked for. They're getting, on average, about 25% of their ask. And So if you go through the list, most of them are worthy organizations. There are some community art organizations. There are some charities, things like the Downtown Clinic, that's very important. The Soup Kitchen, certainly that's very important. Uh, Interfaith Good Samaritan, which helps out a lot of people in need. In general, there's they're not overspending, and they have at least trimmed things down to what they can afford. So, in general, I think this is a good thing. If you want to see all the details, again, this is a huge spreadsheet. If you're watching the video of this installment, you can see how big it is.
Approximately 35 groups and organizations made a presentation to joint Albany County Commissioner and City Council member group in.
And they are all bona fide 501c3 organizations, so they actually are legitimately educational or charities, and that's a good thing. So that's going to be approved as part of the agenda. And then there are a bunch of other resolutions. But again, mostly things that have already been discussed and don't really require too much discussion. Some of the other items include the representation of the city at the WAM convention. WAM, W-A-M, stands for Wyoming Association of Municipalities. They have a summer convention every year where leaders from various cities get together, and they're going to be they have to formally approve delegates to that. So again, mostly not really a very exciting agenda after that point. Nothing here that's terribly controversial. One thing which may be of interest to citizens who use the rec center is the approval of the new fees for the rec center and the discounts that are given to people with limited incomes. The cost to use the rec center for an adult is now going to be $7.25 for each visit if you pay the fee for an individual visit. If you're a youth or a senior, it's going to be $5. And if you buy a pack of 20 visits at one time, you get a little bit of a discount. And then if you buy monthly or annual passes, you get a little bit more of a discount. It's still fairly high. It's still more than a private gym. But on the other hand, the private gyms in Laramie don't have a pool. And so there is, if you're a swimmer, this is your best option. There are also some family plans that can save you a little bit of money. The cost is probably a little bit higher than people are comfortable with. It now costs you about the same as a fancy coffee drink at Starbucks, which has also raised its prices. But they're not exorbitant yet. I think we need to. I don't think these fees are outrageous, but I would definitely hold the line and not raise them any higher.
How much time has spanned since the last increase? Do you recall?
I don't know. I believe it's been 2 years, but in any case, the fees have to be raised because the rec center it has a lot of deferred maintenance. It needs a lot of attention. And so
I recall also last June there was a supplemental budget request that was submitted by leadership in the rec center, and that is probably something that's accommodated in this year's budget proposal.
Yes, in the budget you will find that there is a subsidy for the rec center. The rec center is actually losing money, and these increases will mitigate that to some extent. The rec center will probably still lose money, even with the higher fees, but it will lose a little bit less. Now, an attachment to the item regarding the fees, and also another item on the agenda, have to do with the need-based income guidelines for membership discounts and activity scholarships. And you can look at that attachment and see what they do. Essentially, what they're doing is they're basing their income threshold for getting the discount on the number of people in your family and your gross income. And it's let's see, if you have a family of 4 and your gross income is less than $64,000 a year, you're eligible for a discount. And there are other discounts. There's a whole table for different family sizes. That's probably pretty reasonable, actually, it's a family of four with an income of only 64,000 is definitely going to be squeezed a bit financially, and so at that point you probably do want to give them a discount. So again, nothing particularly controversial there. Finally, the City Council is going to consider future work sessions and future topics of discussion. Their list of things they're going to be discussing include redevelopment codes, redeveloping existing properties, a follow-up discussion on housing and how to incentivize development. And this is a big issue because currently the city seems to be disincentivizing development through excessive regulation. A review of boards and commissions. Does the city have too many? Well, this is something which they haven't scheduled yet, but they probably need to, because right now they require a city council member to go at without any compensation to each board and commission meeting and act as a liaison. And this is stretching the time of our city council members way beyond what's reasonable, and also lowering the net compensation that they get per hour. So this is something which it's good that they're considering. And then they're going to be discussing an ordinance for trailer, camper, and boat parking. What should they do about that? Should you be allowed to park your trailer or your boat on the street? They're going to be talking about that a little bit. And again, they're going to be talking about what to do about the community partner funding in the future, because with the property tax cuts that are coming, they're not going to be able to fund those organizations as much as they did this year. They'll need to talk about what they will do. Some things which are notably not on their list of future work sessions include parking. They seem to not have moved forward at all on downtown parking. And also regulation of rentals, and especially items such as basement egress, where many people, including even the fire chief, has said that the restrictions are too strict. Those items are not on their list of work sessions, and they probably should be, so that's a bit of a concern.
Any comments following the Fifth Wednesday event last week? Normally a Fifth Tuesday. Returning to the Gem City operations, the consideration of a looser format meeting that allows perhaps more interactive dialogue. Having attended that and recorded it on the Talk Shop, it is available in its entirety on the Talk Shop social media page. But any thoughts from you in attendance at that meeting as well, Brett?
Yes. Well, the meeting was a good one. It came off better than I personally expected. There was a lot of interaction with council. They were all there. They all listened. And the public was allowed to comment for longer than they could at a normal city council meeting, which is a very good thing. It was a little bit formal because it was conducted with the entire council behind a dais, and people were being recognized in sort of a formal way, but it wasn't excessively formal. And it was good that council got to a lot of topics which haven't been discussed elsewhere. They also put up boards where the public could make notes that council could see about topics that were important that they wanted to be considered. There wasn't a big open house. There wasn't a dog and pony show by city staff, which may actually have been a good thing, because the main purpose of these meetings is input to the city rather than output from the city. So all in all, I think it was very positive. I'm very glad they held it, and I think it bodes well for future sessions when they have more time to plan. I think this is a good way to kick off having the Fifth Tuesdays again, and I hope that they...
And third is closed and could be expected to be closed right up until Jubilee Days, perhaps then closed again beyond Jubilee Days, as city notices have noted.
Yes, the traffic is being diverted over to 4th Street, which fortunately was built about as wide, almost as wide, too much, but that intersection, which is one of the busiest intersections in the entire state of Wyoming, will be closed through Jubilee Days, and that's going to require everybody to rethink how they travel through Laramie.
This Cinco de Mayo installment of the Talk Shop with Brett Glass, brought to you in part by Chanos Village, celebrating Cinco de Mayo with their full menu today and always, all year long, supporting many endeavors in Laramie. That's Chanos Village, 513 Boswell Drive. And today launches the Enchiladas for a Cause promotion by the Epson Center for Seniors. If you are interested in the best price available, today is that time. Through 6 p.m., you can get your orders in by the dozen, 3 options to choose from, 3 separate recipes, and those span many decades through the Laramie area, from St. Lawrence School doing their enchilada sale to now taken over by Epson Center for Seniors, and the funds dearly needed. If you are interested in any of those dozens, please consider making your investment today in our.
Have a great week. Oh, and one more thing that I should add. As I mentioned at the beginning, City Council will also be having a session at which it considers the city budget going forward on Wednesday. And that's not part of the Tuesday City Council meeting that we usually cover, but it is of some interest. It talks about how the city plans to budget going forward, and those of us who are budget hawks may wish to watch carefully as that goes on, because the supplemental budget does include a big increase in city expenses, about $500,000 worth of pay raises for city staff.
Can we afford that in the city of Laramie?
We can afford it now. However, in 2026, there is going to be an initiative on the ballot statewide that would cut property taxes for homeowners, at least for owners of single-family homes, by another 25%, in addition to the 25% cut which has happened this year. This is going to impact the city again by about that $500,000. So there is some question as to whether we'll be able to afford this going forward. I am not an accounting expert, but I would be a little bit concerned, and those who are interested in making sure that the city is solvent and that we don't have to cut vital services should definitely keep their eye on this.
Could this type of initiative?
One way to cut the deficit is to cut services. And people should be concerned in Laramie about both. When I campaigned for city council last year, the big concern that a lot of people had was the maintenance of infrastructure, things like city streets. And, that we don't want that to go by the wayside. And we don't know whether the state legislature is going to give us any backfill to compensate for the decrease in tax revenue. So we should be concerned about that. Now, interestingly enough, the county, unlike the city, is not going to be impacted as much by these cuts in property taxes. And the reason for that is wind farms. We have wind farms coming online, and they are going to generate taxes for the county.
Anticipated.
Yes, at least that's anticipated.
At a substantially lesser level. So that bears consideration. County commissioners meet tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. in the commissioners' room, basement of your Albany County Hall and the Albany County Courthouse. So don't miss those. Stay involved. One point of note: the City of Laramie has entered executive sessions the last approximately 2 months for